This race was one of the most demanding and dramatic ones I've had in a while, and not to mention it included one of my best comeback drives that lasted right until the last few minutes. So I suggest you watch this video all the way until the end. So we came into this weekend wanting to pick up some good points. After last race, when we were so close to a podium, just to pit and end up 6th. And when we arrived, we definitely looked like we were on the right track for the race we wanted, as not only were the conditions basically perfect, but we were put in a team of 2 with Alex. However, just before the race, we were given a few small setbacks. We were given a small weight penalty, just 10 seconds though, and we were told that due to the heat and lack of people, the race will be shortened from an hour and a half to just an hour, meaning less pit stops and less time to make a potential comeback drive. But that would never have to happen, would it? So immediately as I left the bay for qualifying, I felt that something was wrong. The 2 karts in front of me considerably gapped me out of the pit lane, despite me getting on the throttle at roughly the same time as them. And by lap 2 of our just 5-lap qualifying, my fears were being realised in real time, as I was being passed left, right and centre. So as it was qualifying, and not the race yet, I decided to peel into the pits and tried to swap karts. However, confusion in the pit lane meant that I left with only 1 lap to qualify, and the same kart that I came in with. So I did my lap, but when the dust settled and the grid formed, we were last, with a best lap of 40.1, 3 entire seconds off the pace. But luckily, we had a chance to swap our kart on the grid, which was a chance we eagerly took. So things were finally looking up. We had a new kart after all, and nothing can really get much worse from here. Yeah, we were forced to start from the pit lane, meaning that not only were we last in class, but we were behind all the cadets as well, and with a gap to make up. So we had our work cut out for us. But we don't give up, so we got straight to work. So cut to 3 laps later and we've caught up to the back of the pack, and we began scything through the cadets. However, despite them being as slower karts, they still put up a fight, and to give them their due, they're very fast drivers. But by the 6-minute mark, we'd managed to make it through all of the cadets, and just 2 laps later we'd caught up to the first junior. We get a better exit out of 180, can we catch up? As we head down towards the Warren, we're going to look to the inside, we're going to dive down the inside, completely on the curb, but he's holding the outside. We've got the inside into Oak Tree though, and he has to give way into the last corner, or does he? He's going to try and carry it side by side, but we're just about ahead. So now it's up into P12. So nothing else really happened in this stint. But as there are a lot of new viewers coming to this series, I'm going to briefly explain how this race format works. So it's a 1.5 hour endurance race, and we get split into teams of 3, each team being given a pit board to bring their driver in, and 5 pit tokens to give to the marshals, so that they know that everybody's done the same amount of pit stops, meaning that all of the teams need to pit at least 5 times. So every single driver gets on average 2 stints of 15 minutes. But as you can imagine with an endurance race, strategy comes into play a lot, which is why Alex pulled a great move, bringing me into the pits just as I caught up to the back of P11. So I effectively had 5 straight minutes of quali laps as I was in clear air. Now this strategy would have helped us jump up to P9 or even P8, but you remember that small setback that I talked about earlier? Yeah, the weight penalty. Well, that essentially discounted everything I did here, nearly dropping us back into last. But these flying laps meant that we just about stayed in P12, and after Alex pulled a brilliant first stint, we were back to fighting for P9. So as soon as we left the bay for stint 2, we were out into some clear air, which was brilliant for our race. However, the clear air was short-lived, as literally a lap later. However, this could be a good thing, as usually in karting, having someone in front of you makes you a bit faster, as it makes you push more. However, that turned out to actually be a bad thing, because often the karts you swap to have been swapped in before. Despite our kart being much faster than our original one, it did have some lingering tyre issues, specifically on the rear right, which meant that as we began to push more, and our inputs became slightly more aggressive, the kart's previous mild oversteer and understeer got much worse, meaning that it was very difficult to get within overtaking range, and the cycle of realising you're dropping back, pushing harder, and dropping back even more, repeated over and over again until they were all the way up the road. However, this didn't really matter, as we later found out that the guy in front was one of the leaders. So while it may not look like anything's happening, I'm pushing as hard as I can to get in some good laps now, ahead of Alex's last stint and bringing the race home, so that once we've pitted, we can hopefully come out in a better position. And this really showed, as later in the stint, I caught up to the first junior we overtook, to lap him. meaning that now we've got ourselves very much out of the backmarker circle. And as I don't quite know what position we were in, due to it not being clear on track, as we were effectively a pit stop ahead of the other team, I'd like to say I came out for my stint around P10 and came into the pits anywhere between net P9 and P8. However, that was the only issue, the pits, as after my stint I pulled off some of the worst parking you might have ever seen in your life.
Can't park there, sir.
Forcing Alex to literally jump over the top of my car to get in. However, this did only lose us a couple seconds, and when Alex went out for his last stint to bring the race home, he was out in a solid P8, with about a 10-second gap to the car behind and 30 seconds to the car in front. So Alex brought home a P8 finish. So while P8 might not sound like much, it was a brilliant result, given that we started P17 and from the pit lane. So a massive thank you to Alex, shout out to these guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.